Do the president's bidding.
I think the president's position that he's taking on the Dreamers and DACA is very bold. It's clever of him to offer far more on DACA than what most Republicans would have offered.
Brady under pressure, escapes the sack, launching one for the end zone. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, the long drought is over.
We got it! Eagles!
Their children. A lot of you maybe haven't even gone to sleep yet. And right now, speaking of Philadelphia, chaos in Philadelphia after the Eagles' big win. Look at this. Police trying to keep up with the out-of-control fans storming the city after their first ever Super Bowl championship. Look at that. Fireworks, everything. But take a look at this insane video. This was a hotel canopy collapsing under a group of fans that climbed on top of it. Well, no word on any injuries, and this is crazy video as well of a crowd of Eagles fans flipping a car and celebrating in the streets. That's some way to celebrate, huh? Other people setting fires, lighting fireworks, and even starting a food fight inside a convenience store. SWAT teams being called in to help control the crowds. You know, you won. Be excited, but don't light fires. Well, before all that chaos and celebrations, the underdog Eagles leaving it all on the field. It was quite a game to defeat the New England Patriots. Fans biting their nails as quarterback Tom Brady and his team took the lead in the fourth quarter. But Philly bounced right back, ultimately securing a 41-33 win in Minneapolis.
And for the Philadelphia Eagles, the long drought is over. Finally.
The star of the game, Eagles quarterback Nick Foles, who even caught a touchdown pass. That was quite a play, actually one that he did in high school, and he was named the most valuable player.
Here with my daughter, my wife, my family, my teammates, this city. We're very blessed.
Blessed indeed. The win capping a star-studded night with Justin Timberlake taking the stage at halftime. But some of the football fans slamming the concert for some audio problems. And Pink battling through the flu to perform the national anthem. And to make the moment even sweeter, the singer is a diehard Eagles fan. Well, President Trump also, as you would expect, taking to Twitter to praise the Eagles on their win, tweeting congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles on a great Super Bowl victory. The post comes after our commander-in-chief reignited the national anthem protest controversy just hours before the players took the field. He was at a Super Bowl party himself there. That's what that picture is. President Trump releasing a statement saying their sacrifice is stitched into each star and every stripe of our star-spangled banner. We hold them in our hearts and thank them for our freedom as we proudly stand for the national anthem. And by the way, every single player stood for the national anthem. And much more on the game coming up. What a game it was. Congratulations to those Eagles. Well, turning now to Washington, though, we have to talk about that. The political firestorm over the controversial memo alleging FBI abuse reaching a fever pitch. Now, the House Intel Committee is set to vote on whether to release the Democrats' counter report today. Doug Luzader joins us now live in the nation's capital with the head-to-head partisan battle. We're not talking about the football field, right, Doug?
Nobody's setting fires yet, Heather,
no.
but it's still early in the day, so we'll see. Yeah, we may see this vote today, and some Republicans actually support Democratic efforts to release their own memo here. And if there is any area of bipartisan agreement, it seems to be that the Mueller probe, the FBI investigation, the Mueller probe into possible ties to Russia should continue, despite what these memos may or may not say about allegations of FBI malfeasance. But from there is a deep divide.
I would argue that it's also somewhat unprecedented to rely on political opposition research to instruct and inform an application, and it's really bad precedent and unprecedented to not tell a court that a source has this level of bias.
The goal here really isn't to find out the answers from the FBI. The goal here is to undermine the FBI, discredit the FBI, discredit the Mueller investigation, do the president's bidding.
Now, the president, meantime, has taken this a step further, going to Twitter to say this memo totally vindicates Trump, the Republican memo, that is. But the Russian witch hunt goes on and on. There was no collusion and there was no obstruction, the word now used, because after 1 year of looking endlessly and finding nothing, collusion is dead. This is an American disgrace. Democrats, meantime, are already trying to build pressure on the president to sign off on the release of this Democratic memo, assuming it's voted out of committee perhaps later today. Heather.
All right, it has to go through the process, though. Yep. Doug Luzader live for us. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
We're now learning something else that happened over the weekend that slammed head-on into a freight train, another train. It was on the wrong tracks. Federal investigators now trying to figure out why a switch was in the wrong position, sending an Amtrak onto a side rail in South Carolina where the freight train was parked. Well, the head of the NTSB says that the disaster could have been prevented if a federal safety program was in place to slow the train down. 2 people are dead and nearly 150 others are injured. And today, President Trump is heading to Ohio, promoting his tax plan. But back in Washington, lawmakers will be hard at work to come up with a budget deal in order to avoid a second government shutdown. Now, Kelly Wright is live in our nation's capital with the latest proposal to keep the doors open. Good morning, Kelly.
Heather, good morning. Well, just as you said, the White House says the president is traveling to Ohio today, where he'll tout his new federal tax overhaul. But here in Washington, lawmakers just found or are looking to find agreement once again on short-term spending or face another government shutdown. Now, Republicans want a spending bill through March 22nd. Democrats want to resolve the immigration issue involving DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It led to last month's 3-day shutdown. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin wants to avoid that shutdown, but he's still pushing for a bipartisan deal on DACA.
There is not likely to be a DACA deal, though we're working every single day on telephone calls and person to person to try to reach this bipartisan agreement. I don't see a government shutdown coming, but I do see a promise by Senator McConnell to finally bring this critical issue that affects the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in America, finally bringing it to a full debate in the Senate.
Republican Senator John McCain and Democrat Senator Chris Coons are introducing a bipartisan plan today. It calls for a pathway to citizenship for young immigrants in the DACA program. Senator McCain telling the Wall Street Journal this: "It's time we end the gridlock so we can quickly move on to completing a long-term budget agreement that provides our men and women in uniform the support they deserve. While reaching a deal cannot come soon enough for America's service members, the current political reality demands bipartisan cooperation to address the impending expiration of the DACA program and secure the southern border." Now, lawmakers have until this Thursday, February 8th, to approve funding and possibly get a deal on DACA. If not, well, there could be another government shutdown on Thursday.
Yeah, and the McCain-Coons plan reportedly doesn't include funding for the border wall, so that may be a problem.
Reportedly, it does not. We will see as they make that plan known today.
Yeah, we always talk about what's in it before we actually know what's in it. Kelly Wright live for us. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. Well, despite heavy criticism from conservative Republicans, former White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, he's defending the president's offer to grant a path to citizenship for nearly 2 million Dreamers. He says not only does it force the Democrats to make the next move, but it's the president's way of calling their bluff on DACA.
I think that if you look at what's happening in the economy, and you look at the tax cuts, you look at unemployment, I think those things matter a lot. I actually think he is doing better. I think he did better with black voters and Hispanic voters in the election. I think we can do more. I don't think anything in the autopsy is wrong. I think the president's position that he's taking on the Dreamers and DACA is very bold. I think he's boxed the Democrats in on that issue. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to walk away from. He's giving more than I probably would have given in the same as advice to him, but I also think it's clever of him to offer far more on DACA than what most Republicans would have offered, because I think it boxes everyone else in, and so I think it's very smart.
In other news, the Federal Reserve officially getting a new chief today. Jerome Powell will be sworn in at 9 a.m., inheriting a historically booming economy. Well, Powell replaces Janet Yellen, who has led the nation's central bank since 2014. President Trump chose not to reappoint her. Yellen had the shortest tenure, by the way, for a Fed leader in nearly 4 decades. And this was a great moment. A friend of mine, actually, a true American hero, honored with the coin toss at the Super Bowl. Marine Corporal Woody Williams is the only living Medal of Honor recipient from the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II. And the 94-year-old is known for charging enemy strongholds with a flamethrower. Corporal Williams was given the military's highest honor by President Truman back in 1945. He and 15 other Medal of Honor recipients were honored before the kickoff last night. And congratulations to him and to all of those Medal of Honor recipients. And thank you for your service. Well, the time now is about 11 minutes after the top of the hour. And from day one, President Trump has made it clear that he supports America's police.
With me as your president, America's police will have a true friend and loyal champion in the White House from day one. We have your back.
But if you ask mainstream media, the president's support of the FISA memo is waging war on law enforcement. Our next guest is a former officer who says that it couldn't be further from the truth. And this nonsense really needs to stop. Donald Trump Jr. railing on the PC police why a father-daughter dance was just canceled at one school.
I'll never beat you. I'll never lie. And if you're evil, I'll forget you by and by.
He just can't stop the controversy why Prince fans are outraged over Justin Timberlake's performance. Welcome back. President Trump making it clear that his administration supports the rank and file at the FBI and the DOJ. Read this tweet carefully, read it again as the FISA memo fallout continues. But according to the media, the president's call for transparency is more like a call to arms against law enforcement. Some of the headlines there. Here to weigh in, former NYPD Lieutenant and U.S. Army veteran Dr. Darren Porcher. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
So what about this? I mean, the release of the FISA memo, is it anti-law enforcement?
No, it's not. You have to take in consideration what the president is. When we look at the 3 components of government, the executive branch in particular, that is at the forefront of law enforcement, and that's what Trump represents. So when you look at the campaign, he was an adamant supporter of law enforcement. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the transparency with this memo, I think it was sound and it was necessary. This FISA memo came out and it showed that, look, Trump didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. So moving forward, he railed against the I want to say the acts of the Justice Department in connection with this, mm-hmm. and it proves a sound piece that Trump did what was necessary and he wasn't a part of this Russian collusion. Yeah. So when you hear things, him railing against the FBI, they overstepped their boundaries.
And it's leaders at the top of the FBI and the top of the DOJ. It's not the rank and file, I should say, and those men and women that go out there doing the job every single day. Let's take a look at this quote from the Washington Post following the memo's release. Republican leaders opened defiance last week of the FBI over the release of a hotly disputed memo, revealed how the GOP, which has long positioned itself as the party of law and order, has become an adversary story of federal law enforcement as the party continues its quest to protect President Trump from the Russia investigation. So the entire GOP party, they're saying now, is an adversary of law enforcement.
You know, I disagree. I'm a strong proponent of the president and the position that he's taken moving forward. I think one of the things that President Trump did that was very necessary was the firing of James Comey. I think that he was in play when a lot of these oversteps by this FISA memo were taking place. And so he came in, Trump rightfully so came in, and he got rid of him. A lot of people say that, look, Rod Rosenstein is being villainized, so to speak. And I disagree. I think Trump is he's calling it as he sees it. He's always been a person that's called balls and strikes, and this is a strong comparison to where he's been, and it goes back to his support, his avid support for law enforcement.
They're supposed to decide today whether or not they'll release the Democratic memo to the FISA memo that's already been released. Transparency in and of itself, does transparency make the FBI and the DOJ weaker in their ability to do their job? Because that's what this was. It was making them transparent.
I think transparency is a necessary entity in not just law enforcement, but politics in general. And this is something that Trump has introduced at the forefront. Look, I want to get this out to the American people. I want them to know that I was not a part of this Russian collusion. So people may say that, hey, look, well, I want to say Democrats, so to speak, may state that, look, this memo, the revealing of this memo was in detriment to national security. I am in diametric opposition to that. I feel that it's necessary to show that this is something that is in play, that Donald Trump did the right thing, and there was, in fact, no Russian collusion.
Necessary to have faith in our leaders. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That makes sense.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Dr. Porcher. Well, the time now is about 19 minutes after the top of the hour, and they can barely tie their shoes. But one school wants to let children as young as kindergarten choose their own genders and race without telling their parents. And the former ESPN host who called President Trump a white supremacist is at it again. Wait until you hear how she's attacking President Trump this time.
We saying oh, we oh, we oh, we oh. We saying oh, we oh, we oh, we oh. I wanna scream and shout.
Welcome back. Liberal talk show host Jimmy Kimmel creating quite the controversy, essentially saying that conservatives aren't smart enough to do what he does for a living. During a live event, Kimmel saying, quote, "It just so happens that almost every talk show host is a liberal, and that's because it requires a level of intelligence." Well, the late night host frequently uses his show to slam Republicans and conservative values. What do you think about that? And ESPN's Jamil Hill takes another shot at President Trump after he reminds us to stand for the national anthem during the State of the Union.
It's low-hanging fruit. It's what I like to call racial pornography because it's a way to stoke his base. I think it's kind of weirdly brilliant because he has been able to hijack the entire...
Everyone a fan. Now, fans of the late singer Prince slamming Timberlake for his tribute performance. They say that it's not what Prince had wanted and that he had spoken out against using holograms or digital projections of deceased musicians. The tribute coming as a surprise to some after Prince's close friend tweeted, quote, "Family, I spoke with Justin tonight, and he shared heartfelt words of respect for Prince and the Purple fans. I look forward to seeing what I'm sure is going to be a spectacular halftime show. There is no hologram." And they took a shot outside, and lots of the buildings outside of the arena there in Minneapolis turned purple. That was pretty cool. Well, Eagle fans, meantime, celebrating their big Super Bowl win late last night and early this morning. Of course, some of them could be joining the millions who are skipping work today. I think some, to say it lightly. According to a new study by Mucinex, nearly 14 million people are expected to call out sick today. Last year, 16.5 million people across the country planned 6 days because of the big game. That same study finding 25% believe the day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday anyway. What do you think? Well, the controversy not cooling off for Nancy Pelosi after her out-of-touch tax reform comment.
The crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic.
Well, Democrats turning it into a campaign slogan. But is it really just a gift for the GOP? We'll debate it up next. And if losing the Super Bowl wasn't enough for Patriots fans, is star tight end Rob Gronkowski retiring? Nancy Pelosi making it quite clear how she feels about the president's successes.
The debate on health care is life-death. This is Armageddon. In terms of the bonus that corporate America received versus the crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic.
Pathetic. Armageddon. Well, the GOP using this talk to paint Democrats as out of touch. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders tweeting this: 100,000 Best Buy employees get Trump tax cut bonuses, or as Nancy Pelosi likes to call them, crumbs. So are comments like Pelosi's only helping the Republican Party? Here to weigh in, our panel, GOP strategist Jen Kearns and Democratic strategist Michael Starr Hopkins. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here in person.
Absolutely.
Jen, I'll start with you. So is this helping or hurting the Democratic Party?
Well, I think it's hurting. You know, you look at the irony. You have the multi-millionaire Nancy Pelosi tweeting about how Americans' pockets are being filled by an extra $1,000 or $2. She calls that crumbs. I think this is one of the main reasons that Democrats lost the presidential election, because they are so out of touch about what is going on in the rest of the country. Let's break it down. Here's what Nancy Pelosi thinks are crumbs. 3 million American workers getting bonuses due to the American Tax Cuts and Job Act. Just in the last 30 days, that is quite significant.
Yeah, that's just what's been announced so far.
Yeah, so far, and we know many corporations have bigger plans. You have American companies increasing wages and salaries at the most rapid rate in 18 years. You have U.S. manufacturing bringing back jobs at the fastest rate in 13 years. And the list goes on and on and on. It's quite significant. For her to call that crumbs, again, shows Democrats are very out of touch.
Michael, I'll let you respond.
Yeah, I would just say this. The cost of things like health care going up in states like mine, New Jersey. We now don't have the state and local tax deductions. So it's nice to receive a bonus of $1,000, but when your day-to-day costs start going up, that's when it starts to become prohibitive. And I agree with you on the fact that Congress, they are out of touch. Yeah. Most congressmen, women are making salaries that most Americans will never see.
Right.
And so I think it's why we've talked about things like term limits, why we've talked about things like getting regular Americans back in Congress.
And we have this that happened over the weekend. Speaker Paul Ryan, he sent out a tweet because there was this secretary, this is what it says, his tweet, a secretary at a public high school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, said she was pleasantly surprised her pay went up $1.50 a week. She said that will more than cover her Costco membership for the year. He was being sincere on this, and the secretary was being sincere as well. She was excited. Nancy Pelosi tweeted this in response. Paul Ryan deleted his embarrassing tweet, he did delete it, of a blatant admission because he and Republicans don't know or don't want you to know the truth. The hashtag GOP tax scam is a gift to corporate America and the top 1% at your expense. He also doesn't want you to know he got $500,000 from the Koch family. So it's kind of going both sides. Everyone kind of tweeting this out. Things about, bonuses or not getting bonuses.
Well, look, I look beyond the tweets. I look at the actual policy. If you look at the policy of Nancy Pelosi's party versus the policy of Paul Ryan's, I would take the party of Paul Ryan any day. You look at wages. They were stagnant for 8 years under Barack Obama. Just since President Trump took office, wages have come up 3% just in the last year. That's the highest rate they've increased since 2009. That is not insignificant. You combine that, Heather, with the stock market at a record high, unemployment at a 17-year low, and the list goes on and on of the Trump accomplishments.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at this poll, this Monmouth congressional poll. If the election were held today, which candidate would you vote for? 47% say Democratic, 45% Republican, and then you see 5% don't know, 3% other. So, Michael, I'll ask you, comments like what Nancy Pelosi made, calling these bonuses crumbs, is that hurting the Democratic Party and benefiting Republicans?
No, I think that both comments, whether it's Pelosi's or Speaker Ryan's, kind of it shows shows how Congress has gotten broken. And so now you start to talk about the tax plan, and one side has one view on it, and the other side has another, and no one really knows what to believe anymore. And I think that's the real disservice. We're seeing people check out and not really believe either side.
Yeah, because the partisan divide is just so great.
Well, look, I think with the collapse in the Democrats' lead, they went from 15-point lead down to 2% lead just in the last week. That is significant. That tells me voters are not checked out. They are very much paying attention, Heather, to what
these polls kind of shift every week.
Well, the polls shift and things happen every day with this administration. So we'll see what happens next. Thank you both for joining us. Appreciate it. It's great to have you here. Well, some other headlines for you that we need to talk about. Going overseas now, North Korea slamming President Trump after he called out the rogue regime in his State of the Union address.
North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland. We are waging a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from ever happening.
Well, North Korean officials telling state-run media that the country's nuclear capabilities will, quote, completely deter Trump and his lackeys from showing off on the Korean peninsula. The father of a college student imprisoned and reportedly tortured by North Korea is heading to the Winter Olympics. Fred Warmbier will be Vice President Pence's guest at the opening ceremony in South Korea just days after being recognized by the president at the State of the Union. Emotional moment there. His son, of course, Otto, spent 15 months as a prisoner in North Korea. Fred and his wife detailing the torture on Fox and Friends.
He was blind, he was deaf. As we looked at him and tried to comfort him, it looked like someone had taken a pair of pliers and rearranged his bottom teeth.
Well, Otto died several days after his release. And China, meantime, slamming the U.S. over its new nuclear policy. The Pentagon's plan calling for modernizing missiles and creating smaller bombs while naming China as a potential nuclear threat. Now, the country is now accusing the U.S. of using a, quote, Cold War mentality, arguing that it's not a threat, saying that its nuclear forces are at the minimum level that's required. Russia and Iran also criticizing the new policy after being identified as potential threats. And the SpaceX rocket launches are always a spectacular sight, but we could soon be in for their best show yet.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Tomorrow, the most powerful rocket in the world, the Falcon Heavy, that's what it's called, will lift off from Florida. Now, no people will be inside, but CEO Elon Musk has placed his own Tesla Roadster inside. It cost $250,000. So that's exciting. That's happening tomorrow, so we'll follow up on that. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour. Quote, this nonsense really needs to stop. Donald Trump Jr. railing on the PC police while a father-daughter dance was just canceled at one school.
I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away, better know that I don't and I won't.
Oh, yeah, the commercials. Doritos scoring big with its star-powered Super Bowl commercial. Why the company is waking up, though, to some controversy this morning.
I gotta go and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing and then I can get it be doing because it doesn't matter because I'm gonna dead it.
Have you heard about this story? Donald Trump Jr. slamming the cancellation of a school father-daughter dance over a new gender policy. Now, the New York City school citing a Department of Education mandate to eliminate gender-based activities. And officials saying that the dance could leave people out or make them feel uncomfortable. Now, Don Jr. tweeting, if this doesn't convince you that the PC SJW movement has lost their minds, I don't know what will. This nonsense really needs to stop. So a father-daughter dance canceled. Do you agree with Donald Trump Jr.? Email us what you think at friendsfirst@foxnews.com. We certainly want to hear that. And then there's this story as well that might get you riled up. One state may give children the green light to change their gender and race in school without telling their parents. Now, the policy is called Prohibition of Discrimination, and it would allow children from kindergarten through 12th grade to change their gender identity. And that includes participating in sports, using locker rooms and bathrooms based on their chosen gender. Now, the Department of Education is currently evaluating that proposal. Now some business headlines for you. Sanctuary State, California now testing out a new program that will actually pay some residents just for living there. Now, Tracy Carrasco from our sister network, Fox Business, here with more on the controversial new entitlement experiment. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Heather. Yeah, so this is happening in Stockton, California. Mayor Michael Tubbs says that residents in his city will be getting $500. It's part of a universal basic income, and this will go to low-income residents, several hundred of them over the next few years. And this is funded by the Economic Security Project. They'll be giving money to this. They'll be tracking how these people spend the money, and there's no questions asked really what they do with the money. So this will be starting in August of this year. It was announced back in October.
Now the Eagles players, they just won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They know part of their money where it's going to go.
Yes, so they get a little bit of a bonus for winning. They get $112,000. Now the Patriots, they get $56,000, and they're going to be paying, of course, federal taxes on this, but they're getting a little bit of a break from Uncle Sam because of the new tax code. So they will be paying $41,000, the Eagles will, on this bonus money. That's down from $44,000, which was under the previous tax code. So, but you still have to factor in the state taxes, which Minnesota has pretty high state income taxes. So take some money off of that, but still walking away with a little bonus there.
Yeah, you know, I mean, $44 million. Okay, so people are going crazy about this hilarious Doritos ad that aired in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so this was one of the highlights of the game yesterday. This was a PepsiCo ad for its two best-known brands, Doritos and Mountain Dew. And you can see it's Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, Busta Rhymes teaming up against Morgan Freeman and Missy Elliott for a rap battle. So this was Doritos and Mountain Dew, and it's smart thinking on PepsiCo's part because it kills two birds with one stone. These are pricey ads, so here they get to highlight two of their big brands here, and they're making a comeback from that previous disastrous ad that they had with Kendall Jenner. Remember that one?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So.
All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Super Bowl now, though. Apparently, it may be Gronk's last stand. Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski is mulling over retiring right after the Super Bowl.
I mean, I'm definitely going to look at my future, for sure. I'm going to sit down the next couple of weeks and see where I'm at.
Well, the 28-year-old has dealt with major injuries for nearly his entire NFL career. Despite being sidelined so often, Gronk is considered one of the greatest tight ends of all. Great touchdown there last night. Well, the time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour. And